This is Kelly from Watts the Obsession. Thanks for taking time to watch this video. Today we are going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's phone location, what the authorities know about the location of Bryan Kohberger's phone on various days. As you might know, in the probable cause affidavit, it is disclosed to us that on 12 occasions, at that time at least, the authorities knew that Bryan Kohberger was right near the 1122 King Road residence where victims Madison Mogan, Kelly Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were residing on that evening. So we're going to be talking about the FBI CAS technology and methodology. And the information that I have to provide to you is very thorough. We're going to go pretty deep into it. It's going to get a little technical and nerdy at times. I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. And at the end of this video, I'm going to have a better idea regarding what law enforcement knows exactly about Bryan Kohberger's location on the various dates when he was near the King Road house. In the part 2 to this 2-part video series, we're going to take a super deep dive into what exactly is the FBI CAS technology and methodology, and I think it's going to be very eye-opening for everyone. So first, let's take a look at some of the court documents where this FBI CAS technology and methodology is mentioned. Then we're going to get into exactly what CAS is, what has been learned about this very secretive process, and I actually have my hands on one of the FBI CAS training manuals. It's 137 pages. I've been working through it over the past week or so and pulled out the most relevant information. So we're going to take a look at that as well. So let's first take a look at this right here. Boop. So this is the defense's second motion to compel discovery. So in this second motion to compel discovery, they list in an itemized manner all of the things that they want from the prosecution, from the state's team, as far as the evidence they know that they have their hands on. We're like, hey, you know, you're going to hold this against us. We need to have a chance to properly defend our clients in regards to all evidence you have. So hand it over, right? So item number 1 says request number 1, investigative reports and conclusions from all cell phone analysis, including but not limited to any analysis conducted by police agencies, FBI CAS team, and other Idaho authorities. Okay, and then it talks about more details on why they want that and how they feel they have not received that information. So as we scroll down a little further and look deeper into this document, let's take a look at item number 5. Says request 109, identity of FBI special agent that is a member of the cellular analysis survey team that was consulted with to determine locations of the cell phone from 1112 and 1113, and all CAS certification records and training records for the involved agents. So again, this CAS team, the technology and the methodology is very secret. So the defense asking for information on this level, going so deep into it, all of the certification and training records is a big ask. Are they going to get it? At this time, we don't know. The note beneath that request says the state objected to this request for the reason that it is outside the scope of a certain law, to the extent that the state intends to offer expert testimony. it will comply with that certain law. Mr. Kohberger disagrees with this information was largely relied upon in various warrants, including the arrest warrant. Information relied upon to secure, search, and arrest warrants is necessary to conduct analysis of Fourth Amendment issues. Further, the entirety of information could include materials required under Brady. Idaho Criminal Rule 16 covers broader area than the evidentiary rules of admissibility. So essentially they are saying, hey, although, state, you're telling us that the information we are asking in regarding to the CAST certifications and training records of the agents involved in that CAST team is not relevant on its face. We are saying that the information that you have dug up was due to the CAST technology and methodology by the agents who are part of the CAST team, and we want to know about it. It seems to me that this request from the defense certainly is fair. Again, it is a very secretive process and methodology, and for them to want to know how they gain the information, the very specific and precise information regarding Bryan Kohberger's phone's whereabouts, I don't know, man. That seems like fair game. What do you think? Leave a comment in the section down below because we all want to know what you think.
Now, I think it's important to know two dates that were talked about in that portion of the defendant's second motion to compel discovery that I just read, and that is November 12th and November 13th. So item number 5 says they want the identity of FBI special agent that is a member of the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, or CAST, that was consulted with to determine locations of the cell phone from 11/12 and 11/13, and then all of those certification records. So what we do know based on this statement is that the FBI did use that CAST technology and methodology on the 12th and the 13th to determine the precise location of Bryan Kohberger's phone. Now next, in the probable cause affidavit, Officer Payne talks about how they looked for cell phones that were in the area of coverage near the King Road residence between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. on the morning of November 13th. And his known phone number, the phone number that they knew to belong to Bryan Kohberger at that time, did not show up in that area. So the probable cause affidavit then goes on to say, hey, that's no problem. We know that criminals will often leave a phone behind or turn a phone off or put it in airplane mode to try to elude law enforcement. Officer Payne then goes on to say that pursuant to a search warrant from December 23rd, he was able to identify Bryan Kohberger's phone number, traced back to the origin of Albertsville, Pennsylvania, and the account was open in June of 2022. These records also include historical cell location information, also known as CSLI, for that phone number. After receiving this information, I consulted with an FBI special agent that is certified as a member of the CAST team. Members of CAST are certified with the FBI to provide expert testimony in the field of historical CSLI and are required to pass extensive training that includes both written and practical examinations prior to being certified with CAST, as well as the completion of yearly certification requirements. Additionally, the FBI CAST special agent that I consulted with has over 15 years of federal law enforcement experience, which includes 6 years with the FBI. From the information provided by CAST, I was able to determine estimated locations for Kohberger's number from November 12th to November 13th, the time period authorized by the court. And that was, just at that time, the time upon which they were trying to obtain the probable cause warrant. It goes on to say, on November 13th at approximately 2:42 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone number was utilizing cellular resources that provided coverage to redacted, and that's just going to be a cell tower location, guys, hereafter Coburg residence. At approximately 2:47 a.m., and the Bryan Kohberger's number utilized cellular resources that provided coverage southeast of Kohberger's residence, consistent with his phone number, leaving the Coburg residence and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. This is consistent with the movement of the white Elantra. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the Bryan Kohberger's number stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with either the phone being in an area without coverage, the connection to the network is disabled, such as putting the phone in airplane mode, or that the phone is turned off. Bryan Kohberger's number does not report to the network again until approximately 4:48 a.m., at which time it utilized cellular resources that provide coverage to ID State Highway 95 south of Moscow, ID near Blaine, Idaho, which is north of Genesee, he notes. Between 4:50 a.m. and 5:26 a.m., the phone utilizes cellular resources that are consistent with the number of Bryan Kohberger, traveling south. The ID is State Highway 95 to Genesee, Idaho, then traveling west towards Uniontown, Idaho, and then north back into Pullman. So guys, that right there is in part how, well, it is how they determined the convoluted route that Bryan Kohberger allegedly took home from Moscow, Idaho to Pullman, Washington. It should also be noted that this route home from Moscow to Pullman that took about 45 minutes would typically take 10 to 15 minutes if you took the most direct transit route available. So obviously there was a reason for Bryan Kohberger, allegedly, to take this long route home rather than the far more direct way that would take at least half an hour less time to travel. At approximately 5:30 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's number is utilizing resources that provide coverage to Pullman, Washington, and consistent with the phone traveling back to Kohberger's residence. And then it says, Kohberger's number movements are consistent with the movements of the white Elantra that is observed traveling north on Stadium Drive at approximately 5:27 a.m. And of course, that observation was made by security camera footage. Based on a review of Bryan Kohberger's phone number, estimated locations, and travel, his phone number's phone travel is consistent with that of the white Hyundai Elantra. Further review indicated that Kohberger's number utilized cellular resources on November 13th, 2022, consistent with leaving the area of Kohberger's residence at approximately 9 a.m. and traveling to Moscow, Idaho. Specifically, Bryan Kohberger's number utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. The phone next utilized cellular resources that are consistent with Bryan Kohberger's phone number, traveling back to the area of Kohberger's residence and arriving at the area of his residence at approximately 9:32 a.m. The narrative then offers another important piece of information that Kohberger's phone did not connect to any towers near the 1122 King Road residence after November 13th. Nothing, nada, nothing at all. So Officer Payne then goes on to conclude, he says, by his experience and training and all the investigative product thus far, that it made sense that they were able to follow Bryan Kohberger's route via transmission to cell towers, consistent with the movement of white Elantra for a certain period of time, but did not have his phone registering with any cell towers between the hours of 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. because that's consistent with his phone either being turned off or put into airplane mode. And his conclusion in the affidavit was Kohberger is attempting to conceal his location during the quadruple homicide that occurred at the King Road residence. On December 23rd, 2022, I was granted a search warrant for more of Kohberger's location information. And they found prospective location information and a pen register, trap, and trace on the 8458 phone to aid in efforts to determine if Kohberger stalked any of the victims, in this case prior to the offense. So this means now the warrant is expanded and they were able to get cell phone records for a broader range of time, okay? They wanted to see if he was in contact with any of the victims or their associates before or after the alleged offense, or any locations that may contain evidence of the murders that occurred on November 13th, 2022. And also, is it consistent with the location of the white Hyundai Elantra? So he then goes on to say, on December 23rd, pursuant to the search warrant, I received those historical records for Bryan Kohberger's phone number for the account that was opened in June of 2022. After consulting with CAS, I was able to determine estimated locations for Kohberger's phone number from June 2022 to the present time, the time period authorized by the court. The records for the Bryan Kohberger's phone number showed that phone utilizing cellular resources that provide coverage to the areas of 1122 King Road on at least 12 occasions prior to November 13th. All of these occasions, except for one, occurred in the late evening and early morning hours on their respective days. One of these occasions, on August 21st, 2022, his number utilized cellular resources providing coverage to the King Road residents for from approximately 11:34 p.m. to 11:35 p.m. At approximately 11:37 p.m., Kohberger was stopped by Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke, as mentioned above. His phone number was utilizing cellular resources consistent with the location of the traffic stop during this time frame, and that is on Farm Road and Pullman Highway. So that basically, guys, verifies that Kohberger was with his phone, the phone that they had identified as being used by the cellular resources by the King Road residents, when he was stopped at that traffic stop. So now they are putting Kohberger physically with his phone. Do you see the strength of this evidence? Circumstantial, yes. Strong, hell yes. Further analysis of the cellular data provided showed that the phone number utilized cellular resources on November 13th, consistent with the phone traveling from Pullman, Washington to Lewiston, Idaho via U.S. Highway I-95. At approximately 12:36 p.m., his phone number utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to Kate's Cup of Joe Coffee, located at 810 Port Drive in Clarkston, Washington. Surveillance footage from the U.S. Chef's store located nearby that location, the coffee shop, showed the white Elantra, consistent with suspect vehicle number 1, drive past Kate's Cup of Joe at a time consistent with cellular data from Bryan Kohberger's phone number. At approximately 12:46 p.m., the 8458 phone then utilized cellular data in the area of Albertson's grocery store at 400 Bridge Street in Clarkston, Washington. And again, surveillance footage identified a car consistent with a white Elantra. And additionally, interior surveillance at that grocery store showed Bryan Kohberger walk through the store, purchase unknown items at the checkout, and leave at approximately 1:04 p.m. And then there is a map that depicts Kohberger's possible path of travel right here and in the probable cause affidavit. So now, my friends, when you break that down, they are putting Bryan Kohberger's cell phone pinging in a certain location with video camera surveillance footage of a car consistent with his white Elantra and the man himself, Bryan Kohberger, on that interior security camera footage of the grocery store. So now we have the phone, the car, and the man all together. Just in regards to the specific set of facts we are talking about, I think that's what we call a boom, right? Boom. Additional analysis of records for the 8458 phone indicated that between approximately 5:32 p.m. and 5:36 p.m., Kohberger's phone utilized cellular resources that provided coverage to Johnson, Idaho. His number then stops reporting to the network at approximately 5:36 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and that's consistent with the phone being in the area that his phone traveled in the hours immediately following the suspected time the homicides occurred. So now what's happening is they are putting Bryan Kohberger in a location earlier in the evening on November 13th, 2022, with his phone turned off for a couple hours, that is the same location that went along that convoluted route that Bryan Kohberger took home from Moscow, Idaho to Pullman, Washington in the early morning hours of November 13th after the quadruple homicides. So what exactly was Bryan Kohberger doing there in that exact same location for a couple hours with his phone turned off? Was he looking for a place to ditch the evidence, perhaps?
And I got to tell you, when we went to Moscow and drove that route from the murder scene, this circuitous long route that could have taken him 9 minutes to get back to his apartment if he had gone the normal way, but driving through all these back roads, Dr. Dupree, it was so dark, no street lights, nothing. If an 18-wheeler met me coming the other way, I practically had to stop the car at night. It was that dark.
This is Kelly from What's the Obsession. Thanks for taking time to watch this video.